Hello and welcome back to La Crime Noire. Before we begin, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I always enjoy reading them. If you're drawn to dark, haunting stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now settle in, clear your mind, let the outside world slip away, and let's begin. Story 1. I can still see the world around me breaking apart. Even now, after all this time, I can remember the way everything shook. The ground did not move like normal earth. It did not roll gently or crack once and then become still. It shook like something alive was trapped under the streets and was trying to tear its way out. The walls trembled. Roof tiles jumped and slid down into the roads. Doors slammed open and shut without hands touching them. The stones under my feet moved so hard that I could not trust the ground to stay where it was. Everything around me became a blur. I could not look at a house and see a house. I could only see broken lines, flying dust, falling shadows, and streaks of red and black moving through the air. The world had lost its shape. It had become noise, smoke, and fear. Every time I blinked, the scene in front of me changed. A wall that had been standing a moment before was now falling. A street that had been clear was suddenly blocked by people, carts, stones, and bodies. The sky was no longer the sky. It had become a dark ceiling pressing down over Pompeii. I remember the sound most of all. It was not just one sound. It was thousands of sounds fighting each other. The mountain roared like a god in pain. The city screamed back at it. People cried for their children. Animals broke free from their ropes and ran wild through the streets. Wood snapped, stone cracked, pots shattered, wheels broke. Somewhere nearby, a woman was praying so loudly that her voice rose above everything for one clear second before the roar swallowed her too. I wanted to cover my ears, but I could not stop running. The air was thick. It was not like smoke from a cooking fire or dust from a dry road. It had weight. It pushed against my face and filled my mouth. Every breath felt like I was trying to drink mud. Ash fell from the sky in heavy black flakes. At first it looked strange and almost beautiful, like winter had come to our warm city. But it was not snow. It was death falling softly at first, then harder, faster, thicker, until it covered hair, shoulders, rooftops, statues, and streets. The ash got into my eyes. It burned. It stuck to my lashes and turned my tears black. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, but my hand was covered too. I could only see a small circle in front of me, and even that small circle kept shaking. It was like trying to look through a storm while the storm was inside my own skull. I coughed, and something hot rose in my throat. When I spat, the spit was dark with blood and ash. It tasted like copper, smoke, and something bitter from deep inside the earth. My chest hurt with every breath, but I forced myself to keep moving. I had no choice. There was only one place I wanted to be when the world ended. Home. Not the market where people had been shouting and running since the morning. Not the temple where others had gone to beg the gods for mercy. Not the harbor, where many were trying to escape by boat, even though the sea itself seemed angry and confused. I did not care about gold. I did not care about food. I did not care about saving anything from my shop, my walls, or my small life. I only wanted my wife and my children. I wanted to hold them one last time. I wanted my arms around them when the mountain finished what it had started. I wanted them to know I had tried to come back. I wanted my children to feel my hands on their shoulders, not the cold fear of wondering where their father was. I wanted my wife to see my face before the darkness took us, so I ran. People crashed into me as I pushed through the streets. Some were carrying bags. Some were carrying idols. Some were carrying children who were too tired or too afraid to walk. One old man sat in the middle of the road holding a wooden box to his chest, staring at the sky as if he could not understand how the day had become night. A young boy stood beside a fallen cart, crying for his mother. I wanted to help him. I truly did. But then the mountain roared again, and in that terrible sound I heard the names of my own children. I kept running. My sandals slipped on ash and loose stones. My legs were weak. My lungs felt full of fire. Every step was harder than the last. The streets of Pompeii had always felt familiar to me. I knew every corner, every wall, every shop sign, every place where the road dipped or rose. But now the city had turned against me. It had become a maze of smoke and falling rock. The homes I knew looked like broken teeth. The statues that once watched over our roads were buried to their knees in ash, their faces hidden like they were ashamed to see us die. I passed a baker's oven, cracked open by the shaking ground. Bread had spilled out and lay under a coat of gray dust. A table outside a wine shop had fallen over, and red wine ran through the ash like blood. A dog barked from somewhere inside a collapsed house, then suddenly stopped. I heard that silence even through all the noise, and it made something inside me turn cold. Still, I ran. I tried to think of my wife's face. I tried to hold it in my mind so the fear would not break me. I saw her standing at our doorway in the morning light, her hair tied back, one hand on her hip, telling me not to be late again. I saw my daughter laughing as she chased her brother around the little courtyard behind our home. I saw my youngest child sleeping with one fist pressed against his cheek. These memories hurt more than the ash in my lungs. The mountain had been strange for days. Birds had flown away. Wells had tasted odd. Dogs had refused to sleep. Small tremors had come and gone. We had laughed about some of it because people laugh when they do not want to be afraid. Pompeii had always lived under the mountain shadow, and the mountain had always been silent enough for us to pretend it was only stone. But now it was awake. And it was not stone. It was hunger. When I reached the wider road that led toward my street, the ash was falling so hard that it looked like black snow in the dead of winter. My arms, hair, and tunic were covered. The world had become smaller and smaller until only the road in front of my feet existed. Every few steps, I shouted my wife's name, though I knew she could not hear me. The roar from the mountain and the screams from the city swallowed my voice the moment it left my mouth. Then the ground shook so hard that I fell. My knees hit the stones. Pain shot up my legs. For a moment, I stayed there on all fours, coughing and shaking, while ash landed on the back of my neck like cold fingers. Someone stepped on my hand while running past. I did not even see who it was. I pushed myself up, leaving a bloody print on the gray street. That was when I saw the cloud. At first, my mind refused to understand it. It was too large, too dark, too fast. It came down from the mountain like a river, but no river had ever moved like that. It rolled over the land, thick and black, boiling with red light inside it. It was not smoke floating in the sky. It was a wall. It was a living thing. It swallowed fields, trees, roads, and houses as it moved. The edges of it curled like hands reaching forward. For one foolish second, I stopped running. I had heard stories of gods punishing men. I had heard poets speak of angry seas and monsters rising from the deep. But no story had prepared me for what I saw coming down from that mountain. It looked like death had taken a shape. It looked like the end of every prayer, every hope, every human voice. Then someone behind me screamed, and the scream broke the spell. I ran again. My street was close. Too close to stop. Too close to turn back. The cloud was behind me, and to my left, pouring into Pompeii like a flood of night. The far edges of the city were already disappearing. Houses vanished one after another. People running ahead of it were there one moment and gone the next. The cloud did not chase like an animal. It consumed like a god. My heart beat so hard that I felt it in my teeth. I turned the last corner. There was my street. There was my home. The roof was still standing. Though ash covered it so thickly, it looked like it had aged 100 years in a single day. The small walkway in front of the door was half buried. The little clay pot my wife loved had fallen and broken near the wall. The doorway was open, and there they were. My wife stood outside with our children. For a heartbeat, the whole world became silent to me. My daughter was clinging to her mother's dress. Her eyes were wide, wider than I had ever seen them. Her face was gray with ash except for the wet lines where tears had cut through it. My younger child was pressed against my wife's side, small hands gripping her arm. My wife had one arm around them both, but her eyes were fixed on the street. She was looking for me, even as the city died around her, even as ash fell and the mountains screamed. She had made them wait. She had made them look down the walkway. She had made them believe I would come. When she saw me, her mouth opened. I think she said my name. I will never know for sure. I shouted back. I ran harder than I had ever run in my life. My legs no longer felt like my own. My chest no longer mattered. The cloud behind them was coming fast, rolling through the end of the street, swallowing walls and people and light. It was so close that the air in front of it bent and shimmered. My wife pushed the children forward, as if sending them toward me might save them. My daughter took one step, then another. Her hand reached out. I reached for her too. I was so close. That is the part that has never left me. Not the pain, not the heat, not the darkness. It is the closeness. The small space between my hand and my daughter's hand. A space no wider than a breath. A space that has lasted longer than life itself. Then the cloud took them. It did not take them slowly. It did not give me time to scream a second time. One moment I saw their faces, my wife's eyes, my daughter's hand. My youngest child pressed to her side. The next moment, they were behind a wall of black and red, gone as if the world had closed its fists around them. The first heat I felt was not from the cloud. It was from my tears. They burned down my face, hot and sharp, cutting through the ash. My body kept moving, but something inside me had stopped. I think I screamed. I think I called their names again and again. I do not know if any sound came out. Maybe my voice died before I did. In that moment, I did not pray to be saved. I prayed to be taken with them. Wherever their souls had gone, I wanted to follow. If the gods were listening, I wanted them to carry me to the same dark place, the same bright place, any place at all, as long as my family was there. I had no wish to live in a world where I had watched them disappear. Then the cloud reached me. The heat was beyond pain at first. Pain is something the body can understand. Pain has a shape. It has a place. This was everywhere at once. It wrapped around me, entered my mouth, filled my eyes, covered my skin, and forced itself into every part of me. It was like being struck by the sun. My flesh felt as if it were boiling on my bones. My breath vanished. The ash became fire. The world became flame and pressure and hate. I fell forward, still reaching. I thought I died with my hand stretched toward them. I thought that was the end. But I was wrong. I did not wake the way living men wake. There was no soft breath, no opening of eyes, no morning light. For a long time, there was nothing. Or maybe there was time, but I had no way to count it. I did not sleep. I did not dream. I did not move. I did not breathe. Yet somehow I remained. Darkness held me. Sometimes I thought I heard the city above me, but perhaps those were only memories moving through the ash. I heard my children laughing in the courtyard. I heard my wife calling me in for supper. I heard carts on the road and merchants shouting in the market. Then the sounds would fade, and I would remember there was no market anymore, no supper, no courtyard, no children, only ash, only silence. Years passed, then more years. Then so many years that the world above us must have changed beyond anything I could understand. Empires rose, fell, and turned to dust. Languages changed. Names were forgotten. The gods we feared became stories. The streets of Pompeii slept under the weight of the mountain, sealed away from sun and rain, preserved like a wound that never healed. And I remained. I could not move. That was the worst of it. Not at first, because at first I did not understand what I was. But slowly, awareness returned like cold water dripping into a bowl. I became aware of my body, but it was no longer flesh. My skin was not skin. My chest did not rise. My eyes did not blink. My mouth stayed open in a silent cry that had lasted for centuries. I was trapped in the shape of my last moment. My arm was still reaching. My knees were bent. My face was turned toward where my family had stood. I had become a memory made of stone. I do not know when the hands came. At first, they were only sounds above me, scraping, digging, voices speaking words I did not know. The voices were strange, softer in some ways, sharper in others. They did not sound like the people of Pompeii. They sounded like ghosts from a future that had no place for me. Then light touched me. It was faint at first, a thin, pale line cutting through the dark. After so long under ash, even that small light felt like a blade. More ash was cleared away. The weight around me loosened. Tools scraped near my stone skin. Gentle hands brushed dust from my face, my arm, my chest. I wanted to scream at them not to touch me. I wanted to ask where my wife was. I wanted to ask if they had found my children. But my mouth could not move. The hands worked carefully, almost kindly. They touched me the way priests once touched sacred things. I heard gasps. I heard quiet voices. I felt air around me again, though I could not breathe it. I felt the world return, not as life, but as a cruel reminder of life. They lifted me from the ash. I should have been grateful. Maybe another soul would have been. To be found after so long. To be seen again. To have proof that I had once lived. But all I felt was terror, because being found meant I was still alone. Later they placed me somewhere bright. I do not know what this place is. It has smooth floors and high walls. Many people come and go. They stand in front of me and stare. Some whisper, some point. Some bring their children close, then pull them back when they see the shape of my face. They look at me with sadness, fear, wonder, and curiosity. To them, I am history. I am a lesson. I am a thing from the old world. They do not know I can see them. They do not know I can hear their soft footsteps and their careful voices. They do not know that when they look into the empty spaces where my eyes should be, something inside me looks back. I sit on a pedestal now. My stone body is held in place for strangers to study. They walk around me slowly. They read words written near my feet. They learn about the day the mountain destroyed Pompeii. They learn about ash, heat, gas, and death. They learn how bodies left empty spaces in the hardened ash, and how those spaces were filled so the shapes of the dead could return. But they do not learn my name. Maybe no one remembers it. Sometimes I am thankful for that. A name belongs to a living man, and I am not that anymore. Other times, the loss of it feels like another death. My wife used to say my name in the morning. My children used to shout it when they ran toward me. Now no one speaks it. No one knows it. It has been buried deeper than my body ever was. But I know their faces. That is my punishment. I see them always. Not the strangers in this bright place. Not the walls around me. Not the hands that clean the dust from my stone shoulders. I see my wife standing in front of our home. I see my daughter reaching for me. I see my youngest child hiding against his mother, too frightened to cry. I see the cloud behind them. I see the moment before they vanished. Again and again. Forever. I once prayed to be taken where their souls had gone. Now I pray that prayer was not answered. I pray they are not trapped as I am. I pray my wife is not standing somewhere in the dark, still waiting for me. I pray my daughter is not reaching through centuries for a hand that never came. I pray my youngest child is not frozen in fear, forever pressed against his mother while the world burns. Let me be the only one. Let me carry this stone silence alone. But sometimes, when the museum grows quiet and the last footsteps fade, I wonder where the hands took them. I wonder if they were uncovered too. I wonder if somewhere nearby, in another room, on another pedestal, my family waits with open eyes that cannot blink. Maybe strangers stand before them as they stand before me. Maybe my wife still looks down that walkway in her mind. Maybe my children still wait for me to reach them. That thought is worse than the fire. If I had blood, it would turn cold. There are nights when the earth seems to tremble again. Perhaps it is only the movement of the world outside this place. Perhaps it is memory. Perhaps the mountain is still speaking in my bones, even though my bones are dust. When the floor gives the smallest shake, when a cart rolls by outside, when thunder sounds far away, I am back on that street. I smell ash. I taste copper. I hear the roar. And I wait for the cloud. I do not know how long stone can remember. I do not know if this half-life has an end. Maybe one day I will crack. Maybe one day I will fall, and the pieces of me will be swept into a box and forgotten in a storage room. Maybe that will be mercy. Maybe when my stone face breaks, the last piece of me will finally be free. Or maybe I will remain even then. A broken hand, a piece of a chest, a mouth still open in a scream no one can hear. People think the dead are silent because they have nothing left to say. They are wrong. Some of us are full of words. We are full of last prayers, last names, last regrets. We are full of all the things we almost did, the hand we almost held, the door we almost reached, the goodbye we almost spoke. The world ended for me in the space between my fingers and my daughter's hand. Everything after that has been waiting. Still, there is one thought I keep hidden deep inside this stone prison. It is small, but it is mine. Maybe the world will burn again someday. Maybe mountains always wake. Maybe cities always fall. Maybe every age believes it is safe until the sky turns black. And maybe When fire comes again, this place shakes apart like Pompeii did. My stone body will finally break open. Maybe the ash will rise. Maybe the heat will return. Maybe the darkness will take me. And maybe beyond that darkness, I will find the street again. I will see my home. I will see my wife standing there with our children. Not afraid this time. Not covered in ash, not waiting in pain. My daughter will reach for me, and this time there will be no space between us. My hand will close around hers. My wife will come into my arms. My youngest child will bury his face against my chest. And at last, when the world burns away again, I will hold them. This time, I will not let go. Story 2. When I was around 14 or 15 years old, my family took a long road trip from our home in Texas to Tennessee. My dad was driving, and with us were my little brother and my grandparents. We were going there to visit some family members we had not seen in a while. At that age, I did not always get excited about family trips, especially long ones, but this trip felt different from the beginning. Maybe it was because we were leaving Texas behind for a few days, or maybe it was because Tennessee felt greener, quieter, and older in a way I could not explain at the time. I remember the drive being long, but not in a bad way. We passed miles of highway, gas stations, little towns, forests, and open fields. My brother and I tried to keep ourselves busy in the back seat. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we argued, and sometimes we just stared out the windows as the world rolled by. My grandparents would point out places they found interesting, and my dad kept saying we were almost there, even when we still had hours left to go. By the time we reached the place where we were staying, I was tired, stiff, and ready to get out of the car. But the moment I saw the house, I forgot how tired I was. It was an old yellow Victorian house sitting on a hill. It looked like something from another time, the kind of house you might see in an old photograph or in a storybook. It was painted a soft yellow color, faded a little by the sun, with white trim around the windows and a porch that wrapped around part of the front. Behind the house, the land sloped down toward a river that moved quietly through the backyard. The whole place had a calm, peaceful feeling, like it had been standing there for a very long time, and had seen many people come and go. This was before Airbnb became popular, so places like this were called bed and breakfasts. The owners lived nearby, and they would make breakfast for the guests in the morning. It felt more personal than staying in a hotel. The host seemed friendly, and the house felt warm and welcoming when we first arrived. I remember stepping inside and noticing the smell of old wood, clean sheets, and something sweet, maybe from the kitchen next door. Inside, the house was even more beautiful than it looked from the outside. The walls had soft pink wallpaper with small patterns on it. The wooden floors creaked under our feet, no matter how carefully we walked. The furniture looked old but well cared for, with heavy wooden dressers, little tables, lace curtains, and lamps that gave off a warm yellow light. The bathroom had a big clawfoot tub, the kind with curved feet, and I thought it was one of the prettiest bathrooms I had ever seen. There was something charming about the whole place. It felt cozy, quiet, and safe. At least that was how it felt at first. During the day when we were not visiting our relatives, my little brother and I spent most of our time outside. We explored the yard, walked near the trees, and went down to the river. The water was shallow in some places, so we would stand near the edge and splash around. We skipped rocks and tried to see who could make theirs bounce the most times. My brother laughed a lot, and I remember feeling happy. It was the kind of place where a kid could forget about everything else for a while. The river made a soft rushing sound that never really stopped. Even when we were inside, if the windows were open, you could hear it faintly in the background. It made the place feel peaceful. But it was also quiet in a strange way. Not silent exactly, but settled. Like the house and the land around it had been quiet for so long that the quiet had become part of the walls, part of the air. At the time, I did not think much about that. I just thought it was old and beautiful. That evening, after a long day of hiking, visiting family, and being outside, all of us were exhausted. I remember feeling like my body was heavier than usual. My legs hurt from walking, and my eyes kept closing even before we were ready for bed. Everyone decided to turn in early. The sleeping arrangements were simple. My grandparents had one room, and my little brother made a little pallet on the floor in their room. He liked sleeping near them, and I think they liked having him close. I slept in my dad's room on a metal folding cot that had been set up near the foot of his bed. It was not the most comfortable bed in the world, but I was so tired that I did not care. My dad had the main bed, and I had my cot with blankets pulled up around me. I remember looking around the room before I fell asleep. It was dim and warm. My dad had placed his wallet and belt on the dresser. My jacket was hanging on a hook near the door, right above my shoes. The curtains were thin, and a little bit of outside light came through them. The room had that old house smell, not dirty, just aged, like wood, dust, and old fabric. I climbed onto the cot, pulled the covers up, and closed my eyes. I do not even remember my dad turning off the light. One moment I was awake, and the next moment I was gone, deep asleep. Then, sometime later, I woke up. There was no loud sound that woke me. No crash, no footsteps, no voice, no door opening. I did not hear the wind blow against the window. I did not feel anyone touch me. I just opened my eyes. At first, I did not feel scared. I was only confused. I lay there blinking, trying to understand why I was awake. The room was dark, but not completely dark. A little gray light came through the curtains, enough for me to see everything around me. I could see my dad sleeping in the bed. I could see the dresser, his wallet, his belt, and the shape of his clothes. I could see my jacket hanging from the hook. I could see my shoes below it. Nothing looked different. Nothing looked out of place. For a few seconds, I thought maybe I had woken up because I needed water. Or maybe I needed to use the bathroom. That would have made sense. But when I tried to move, I realized something was wrong. I could not move. Not my arm, not my leg, not even one finger. At first, I thought I was just half asleep. I tried again, harder this time. I told my body to sit up. I told my hand to move. I told myself to turn my head toward my dad and say something. But nothing happened. My body felt like it had been pinned down by something invisible. My arms felt heavy, like they were made of stone. My legs would not answer me. I could not lift my head. I could not roll over. I could not even open my mouth to call for help. And that was when fear began to build inside me. It started in my chest like a cold knot tightening under my ribs. Then it spread through my whole body, even though my body would not move. My mind was awake. I knew I was awake. I could see the room too clearly for it to be a normal dream. Every shadow, every shape, every object was exactly where it had been before I went to sleep. The air in the room felt still and heavy. It felt wrong, like time had slowed down, but the world had not fully stopped. I tried to breathe calmly, but my heart was pounding. I wanted to scream. I wanted to kick the blanket off and run out of that room. I wanted to wake my dad up, but all I could do was stare. Then I saw them. There were two figures standing beside my dad's bed. They were short, maybe 3 or 4 feet tall, and they stood completely still. I knew they had not been there before. I would have noticed them right away. They were not people. They were not children. They were not animals. They were something else. Their bodies were dark green, but the color was strange. It shimmered in the dim light, almost like glitter. Not bright or pretty glitter, but a deep, unnatural shine that moved slightly when they moved. Their heads were long and narrow, stretched back in a way that did not look human at all. Years later, when I finally saw the creatures from Alien versus Predator, I froze because the memory came back so sharply. These things looked like that. Their heads had that same long, narrow shape. But this happened before I had ever seen those movies, before I had any image like that in my mind. I could not see normal faces on them. No clear eyes, no mouth, no nose like ours. At least, not that I could understand. Their heads looked smooth and strange, and the shadows made them even harder to see. But I knew they were aware. I knew they could see my dad. And then I knew they could see me. Each one of them was holding something. I do not know if they were tools or weapons. They were shaped almost like guns, but smoother and more natural looking, as if they had grown from the same strange material as their bodies. They had that same dark green shimmer, that same glittering surface. I could not understand what they were for, but I knew I did not want them pointed at me. They did not speak out loud. Their mouths did not move, if they even had mouths. There was no sound in the room, no whisper, no strange language, no clicking or humming. But I heard them anyway. The voices appeared inside my head. It was not like hearing someone talk from across the room. It was more like the words were being placed directly into my mind. Clear, calm, easy to understand. That made it even worse. I could not cover my ears. I could not block them out. They were inside me. One of them, the one standing closest to my dad, seemed to speak first. "Okay," it said in my mind. "Now we just need this one." The other one answered. "I've already done the two in the other room." The moment I heard that, my fear became pure panic. The two in the other room. My grandparents. My little brother. I wanted to scream their names. I wanted to throw myself off the cot and run down the hall. I wanted to wake my dad and tell him to get up, to protect us, to do something. But I was trapped inside my own body, completely helpless, watching these things stand over him like he was nothing more than an object they had come to collect. Then the second one turned toward me. I could not move my head away. I could not close my eyes. I could only stare back at it while my heart hammered so hard, I thought it might burst. "What about this one?" it asked. The first one sounded annoyed, almost impatient. "We don't need that one," it said. "You know that. Just the males." The way it said those words made my skin crawl. It was not angry. It was not excited. It was casual. Like I was just a small mistake in a room, something extra that did not matter. It was talking about my dad, my little brother, and my grandfather like they were part of a job. And it was talking about me like I was not important enough to care about. But the second one kept looking at me. "It can see us," it said. The first one did not seem worried. "It doesn't matter," it answered. "But hurry up and do it if you must." For a second, I did not understand what that meant. Then the second figure started walking toward me. I cannot fully describe the fear I felt in that moment. I have been scared many times in my life. I have had nightmares. I have had moments when something startled me or made me afraid, but nothing has ever felt like that. This was not the kind of fear that makes you jump or cry. This was deeper. This was the fear of knowing something impossible is real, and it is coming closer, and you cannot do anything to stop it. The figure moved slowly, calmly, almost carefully. It did not rush. It did not need to. It knew I could not run. It knew I could not fight. It knew I could not even turn my face away. I tried harder than I had ever tried to move. I focused on my fingers first. Just one finger, I thought. Move one finger. Then I tried my hand. Then my arm. Then my whole body. I tried to blink. I tried to make any sound at all. I tried to force air out of my throat. But nothing worked. My body stayed frozen. My voice stayed locked inside me. The thing came closer. As it reached the side of my cot, I felt something change in the room. The air seemed colder. The shadows around it seemed thicker. I could see that strange green shimmer more clearly now. It was not like skin, not exactly. It was too smooth in some places, too sharp in others. The object in its hand was held close to its body. I still could not tell what it was, but I was sure it was meant for me. Then, and I know how impossible this sounds, I swear it smiled. I still do not know how it smiled when I could not see a normal mouth. But I felt it. I saw the smallest change in the shape of its face. Or maybe I felt the smile in my mind. It was not friendly. It was not curious. It was pleased. It was like it enjoyed knowing I was afraid. That thought terrified me even more. I screamed inside my head. I screamed as loud as I could without making a sound. I begged my body to move. I begged myself to wake up if this was a dream. I begged for my dad to open his eyes. I begged for anything to happen. The figure leaned closer, and then there was nothing. The next thing I remember, sunlight was coming through the window. I was lying on the cot in the same position, but now I could move. The room looked normal again. My dad was waking up. The dresser was still there. His wallet and belt were still on it. My jacket was still hanging on the hook above my shoes. The curtains were glowing softly with morning light. Somewhere outside, birds were singing, and the river was still moving quietly behind the house. But I was soaked in sweat. My clothes felt damp. My hair was stuck to my face. My heart was still racing, and my whole body felt weak, like I had been running all night. I did not feel rested at all. I felt like I had been awake for hours, trapped in that room, fighting to move while those things watched me. For a few minutes, I did not say anything. I just sat there, trying to understand what had happened. The fear was still in me. The room looked normal in daylight, but I could still see them in my mind. I could still hear their voices. I could still feel the way my body had refused to move. At breakfast, I tried to tell my family. I did not tell the whole story at first because I was afraid they would laugh. I said I had a weird dream. Then I tried to explain more. I told them I woke up and could not move. I told them there were figures in the room. I told them they had talked inside my head. I told them one of them said it had already done something to the two people in the other room. No one had experienced anything strange. My grandparents said they had slept fine. My little brother had not woken up. My dad said he did not remember anything unusual. No one heard voices. No one saw anything. No one felt sick or strange. They listened to me, but I could tell they did not really believe me. To them, it was just a nightmare. Maybe a very vivid one, but still a nightmare. I wanted to believe that too. I really did. It would have been easier to tell myself that my mind had created everything, I was tired. We were in an old house. Maybe the room felt strange. Maybe I had sleep paralysis. Maybe I had dreamed with my eyes open. There are explanations people give for things like this, and I have heard most of them over the years. But even then, at 14 or 15, I knew this did not feel like any dream I had ever had. Dreams fade. Details change. The feeling gets softer over time. This did not. We stayed in that yellow house for a few more days, and I hated every night after that. During the day, I tried to act normal. I went outside with my brother. I walked by the river. I smiled when my relatives talked to me. I ate breakfast when the host made it for us. I looked at the pretty wallpaper and the old furniture and tried to remind myself that the house had seemed charming when we first arrived. But once the sun started going down, my stomach would tighten. I did not want to go back to that room. I did not want to lie on that cot again. I did not want to close my eyes. Every shadow seemed too dark. Every creak in the floor made me hold my breath. The old house no longer felt cozy to me. It felt like it was hiding something. At night, I barely slept. I would lie there under the covers, staring into the dark, waiting. I kept expecting the room to go still again. I kept expecting my body to freeze. I kept expecting to see those two dark green figures beside my dad's bed. Sometimes I thought I saw movement near the dresser or by the door, but when I looked harder, it was only shadow. Still, that did not help. My mind stayed awake, listening. Nothing else happened. No more figures, no more voices, no more frozen body. No sign that anything had ever been in that room. And yet, I could not relax until the day we packed our bags and left. I remember walking out of the yellow house and feeling relief so strong it almost made me dizzy. I looked back at it from the car before we drove away. In the morning light, it looked beautiful again. Just an old yellow Victorian house on a hill, with a river behind it and flowers near the porch. Anyone else would have seen a peaceful little bed and breakfast. They would have seen a charming place to stay for a family trip. But I saw the room. I saw the metal folding cot. I saw my dad sleeping in the bed. I saw the dresser, the wallet, the belt, the hook by the door, and my jacket hanging above my shoes. And I saw them. It has been nearly 25 years since that trip. I am an adult now, and I have had many dreams in my life. I have had nightmares, strange dreams, stressful dreams, and dreams that felt real for a few seconds after waking up. But none of them have stayed with me like that night stayed with me. I can still picture every inch of that room. I remember the color of the wallpaper. I remember the shape of the furniture. I remember the weak light coming through the curtains. I remember the exact place where my dad's belt buckle caught the dim light on the dresser. I remember where my jacket hung. I remember the way the air felt heavy and still. I remember the cold fear in my chest when I realized I could not move. Most of all, I remember the figures. Their dark green glittering bodies, their long heads, the strange smooth things they carried, the way they spoke without speaking, the way they talked about my family, the way one of them turned toward me and said I could see them, the way the other one said it did not matter, the way the second one walked toward me slowly and calmly, because it knew I could not escape. I have tried many times to explain it away. I have read about sleep paralysis. I know people can wake up unable to move. I know they can see things, hear things, and feel like something is in the room with them. Maybe that is what happened. Maybe my brain created the whole thing. Maybe the old house, the long trip, the tiredness, and the strange room all came together and made one terrifying experience. But there is one part of me that has never accepted that. Because when I think back to that night, it does not feel like remembering a dream. It feels like remembering something that happened while I was awake. It feels like remembering people who stood in the room with me. Not people exactly, but beings. Things that were not supposed to be there. And the worst part is not that they were there. The worst part is that they knew I could see them. And they did not care. Even now, after all these years, when I remember that little yellow house in Tennessee, I do not think about the river first. I do not think about the pink wallpaper, or the clawfoot tub, or the friendly hosts making breakfast in the morning. I think about waking up in the dark, unable to move, while two strange figures stood beside my father's bed. I think about the voices in my head. I think about the one that walked toward me. And I think about the moment everything went black. That is why, even after all this time, I still cannot call it just a dream. Dreams are supposed to disappear when you wake up. Dreams are supposed to feel soft around the edges after enough years have passed. But this memory never softened. It stayed clear. It stayed sharp. And deep down, I still believe that something came into that room that night. I still believe something saw me watching. And I still believe that whatever happened in that little yellow house, it was real. Story 3. I started that Saturday feeling happier than I had felt in a long time. It was one of those rare mornings when everything felt light. I woke up before my wife and daughter, which almost never happened. Most mornings, I was the one dragging myself out of bed, half awake, looking for coffee before I could even speak like a normal person. But that morning was different. My eyes opened before the alarm, and instead of feeling tired, I felt ready for the day. For a few minutes, I just lay there and listened to the quiet house. My wife was breathing softly beside me, still deep asleep. Down the hallway, my daughter's room was silent. The world outside the windows was calm, and the early morning light was just beginning to slide through the curtains. I remember smiling to myself, thinking that I could do something nice for them. I didn't get many full days at home with my family. Work had a way of taking those days from me. So while I had the chance, I decided to make breakfast. I slipped out of bed as quietly as I could and went to the kitchen. I moved slowly at first, careful not to drop anything or slam a cabinet door. I pulled out the pancake mix, eggs, bacon, and a carton of orange juice from the fridge. Before long, the kitchen began to feel warm and full of life. Bacon hissed in the pan. Pancakes bubbled on the griddle. The smell of butter and syrup mixed with the smell of fresh coffee. And for once, the house felt like the kind of home people talked about in stories. I even put on the silly apron my daughter had given me last Father's Day. It said, "Kiss the chef," across the front in big letters. I had laughed when I opened it, but she had looked so proud that I wore it every chance I got. That morning, it felt right. I wanted breakfast to feel special, even if it was just pancakes and bacon on a Saturday morning. The smell worked better than any alarm clock. My daughter came out first, still wearing her pajamas, her hair messy from sleep. She shuffled into the kitchen with her eyes half closed and climbed into her chair at the table, like she had been pulled there by the scent alone. She rested her cheek in her hand and tried to stay awake, but her head kept dipping forward. I laughed and told her breakfast was almost ready. She gave me a sleepy little smile and asked if there were chocolate chips in the pancakes. I told her maybe. That made her sit up a little straighter. A few minutes later, my wife came in. I didn't hear her at first. I was too busy turning pancakes and trying not to burn the bacon. Then I felt her arms come around me from behind, and before I could turn, she kissed me on the cheek. She laughed softly and said the apron suited me more than my uniform did. I told her that was because the apron came with better benefits. For a little while, everything was perfect. My wife sat at the table beside our daughter while I brought over plates of pancakes, eggs, and bacon. I poured orange juice into 3 glasses and set the syrup in the middle of the table. My daughter was more awake now, poking at the pancakes with her fork and waiting for me to sit down. My wife looked tired, but happy. She had one hand pressed gently against her temple, and when I asked if she was okay, she said she just had a small headache. Nothing serious. She told me she was probably going to spend the day resting. I remember thinking that sounded perfect. A quiet day at home, a movie or two, maybe a nap on the couch. Maybe I could finally fix the loose handle on the back door, or maybe I would ignore it for one more week and just enjoy being with them. I was about to sit down when my phone started vibrating in my pocket. At first, I ignored it. I knew that buzz too well. Work always had a way of finding me, even when I was not supposed to be found. But it kept vibrating, and my wife gave me that look, the one that said she already knew who it was. I pulled the phone out and saw the sheriff's name on the screen. I answered with a tired sigh. He didn't waste time with small talk. His voice came fast and serious. He told me there had been an armed robbery and assault a few miles outside of town. He said the suspects were dangerous, and he needed everyone available, all hands on deck. That was the phrase he used. I looked at the table, at the food I had made, at my daughter waiting for me, at my wife rubbing her forehead, and I felt that old weight settle in my chest. I asked him if it could wait. He said it couldn't. So I told him I would be there soon. When I hung up, I just stood there for a moment with the phone in my hand. My daughter had laid her head down on the table again. My wife looked at me with soft, understanding eyes. But that only made me feel worse. I started apologizing right away. I told them I was sorry. I told them I would be back as soon as I could. I told my daughter I would make it up to her. I said all the things I always said when work pulled me away. My wife told me she understood. She always did. But I could hear the disappointment beneath her voice, even though she tried to hide it. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, still apologizing over my shoulder. Before I could step outside, my wife caught the back of my shirt and pulled me toward her. I turned and she kissed me properly this time, slow and warm. Then she smiled and told me not to worry. She said her head still hurt, and that she and our daughter would probably spend most of the day lying around, watching cartoons and napping. I told her I loved her. She said she loved me too. That was the last normal moment of the day. The place the sheriff sent me to was not just a few miles out of town. Not even close. The farther I drove, the more annoyed I became. The road stretched on and on past fields, old barns, and long lines of trees. I kept checking the address, wondering if I had entered it wrong, but the GPS kept taking me farther away. After a while, I started wondering how the incident was even part of our jurisdiction. It felt like I was driving out of our county completely. By the time I reached the scene, my good mood was gone. There were already patrol cars there, but the place was quiet. No shouting, no search dogs, no officers running through the woods with guns drawn. Nothing that looked like a manhunt. The first deputy I saw told me the suspects had already been caught. I thought he was joking. He was not. The two men had already been taken to the station. They had apparently surrendered as soon as they saw the flashing blue lights. No chase, no fight, no hidden weapons. Just two scared men who gave up the second they realized they had been found. I found the sheriff and gave him a piece of my mind right there. I didn't yell as much as I wanted to, but I came close. I told him he had dragged me all the way out there on my day off. I told him I had left my wife and daughter sitting at the breakfast table for a case that was already over before I even arrived. I told him he could have called me again and told me to turn around. He apologized. He said they thought it was going to turn into something bigger. He said the suspects had been armed and that everyone had been on edge. He said they didn't expect them to give up so easily. Maybe that was true. Maybe he had a good reason for calling me. But in that moment, I didn't care. All I could think about was the breakfast getting cold back home. My daughter waiting for me. My wife with her headache. Probably lying on the couch, trying to rest. Still, once my anger cooled a little, I realized something good. I didn't have to stay. The suspects were caught, the scene was secure, and there was nothing left for me to do. I could go home. I could still save part of the day. Maybe my wife and daughter would still be awake. Maybe I could warm the pancakes and pretend the morning had only been delayed, not ruined. So I got back into my car, shut the door, and set the GPS for home. At first, everything seemed normal. Siri's voice came through the speakers, calm and clear, telling me where to go. I followed the directions without thinking too much. I knew the general way back, but I trusted the GPS to find the fastest route. The roads out there twisted through woods and fields, and I had never been good with back roads. I drove for 30 minutes, then 45, then an hour. The whole time, Siri kept giving directions. Turn right here. Take the next left. Stay straight for 8 miles. At first, I didn't question it. Rural roads could be confusing, and sometimes the fastest route was not the one that looked right. But after an hour and a half, I began to feel a cold knot form in my stomach. I should have been close to town by then. I should have recognized something. A store, a church, a gas station, a road sign. But there was nothing. Only trees. Trees on both sides of the road, thick and dark even in the daylight. The asphalt stretched ahead of me like it had no end, no houses, no mailboxes, no cars passing in the opposite direction. Just road, trees, and Siri's calm voice telling me to keep going. I looked at the top corner of my phone and saw that I had no service, no bars at all. That made no sense because Siri was still giving directions as if everything was fine. I picked up the phone from the passenger seat and glanced at the map. The blue route line was still there, bending and twisting like a snake. Then Siri spoke again. Make a U-turn here. I slowed down and looked around. There was no safe place to turn, just narrow shoulders and ditches filled with the weeds. At the next stop sign, turn left. I had not seen another road for miles, but a minute later, a stop sign appeared through the trees. It stood there alone at an empty intersection, faded and slightly crooked. I turned left because that was what the phone told me to do, but my hands felt tight on the wheel. Keep straight for 10 miles. Something was wrong. 2 hours had passed before I finally tried calling my wife. I pressed her name and held the phone to my ear. Nothing happened at first. Then the call failed. I tried again. Same thing. I tried 4 times, and each time it failed before it even had a chance to ring. I told myself it was because of the service. That was all. Just bad service on some back road. Nothing more. But my chest felt tight. I pulled over onto the side of the road and parked under the shadow of tall trees. The car engine hummed softly. The woods around me were too still. I restarted my phone, hoping the GPS would reset, hoping it would figure out where I really was. The screen went dark, then came back on. The map was still open. The route was still there. I pinched the screen with my fingers and zoomed out. For a second, I could not understand what I was seeing. Then my blood went cold. I was 90 miles from home. 90 miles? I stared at the number, waiting for it to change, waiting for the phone to correct itself. It did not. I had not been driving toward home. I had been driving away from it. Then Siri spoke. Keep driving. Her voice was the same as always. Calm, flat, helpful. But the words did not match the map. They did not match anything. I looked at the phone like it had turned into something alive in my hand. I changed the destination. I deleted my home address and typed in the name of a grocery store in town. One I knew well. It was only a few minutes from our house. I figured if the GPS was confused by my address, maybe it could still get me to town. From there, I could find my way home without help. The new route appeared. It said it would take nearly 3 hours. I cursed so loudly my throat hurt. Then I drove. Those 3 hours felt longer than the entire morning. I watched the trees slide by. I watched the road change from narrow lanes to wider roads, then back again. I passed small signs for places I had never heard of. I tried the radio, but every station was full of static. I tried calling my wife again every time I saw even one bar of service, but the calls never went through. Sometimes the screen showed that the call was trying. Sometimes it failed at once. Not once did I hear her voice. All the while, Siri guided me back. Continue straight. Turn left in half a mile. Take the next right. By the time I saw the first familiar building, relief rushed through me so hard I almost laughed. The grocery store came into view, sitting there in the afternoon light like a sign that the world had finally become normal again. Cars filled the parking lot. People pushed carts toward the doors. Everything looked ordinary. For one moment, I felt foolish. Maybe the GPS had just glitched. Maybe I had somehow taken a wrong turn and made it worse by trusting it. Maybe I was tired and angry, turning a simple mistake into something strange. Then Siri spoke again. Turn around. I froze. The grocery store was right ahead of me. Town was right there. Home was close. I kept driving. Turn around! I looked at the phone. The map had changed again. It was no longer guiding me toward the store. The route was trying to pull me back the way I had come. Do not go home. My mouth went dry. Siri said it again. Do not go home. I grabbed the phone and tried to shut it off. I held the side button down, waiting for the power slider to appear. Nothing happened. I pressed harder. Still nothing. The screen stayed bright. The map stayed open. Turn around. I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat like it had burned me. I told myself it was just a phone. Just a broken phone. Technology did strange things all the time. I had heard stories about people being sent into lakes or down closed roads because of bad GPS directions. This was no different. It had to be no different. But Siri kept talking. Do not go home. Do not go home. Do not go home. The voice filled the car. It came from the speakers, clear and loud, even when I turned the volume down. I rolled the windows open to drown it out with the rush of air. I turned on the radio and cranked it as high as it would go. Static screamed through the speakers, but beneath it, I could still hear her. Do not go home. I drove faster. The streets became familiar. I passed the gas station, where I sometimes bought coffee on early shifts. I passed the school where my daughter had her spring concert. I passed the little park where my wife and I used to take walks when our daughter was small. Every familiar place should have made me feel safer, but instead, each one made the fear inside me grow. Something was waiting at home. I knew it before I reached my neighborhood. I turned onto our street and saw our house at the end of the block. It looked normal, too normal. The curtains were still drawn in the living room. My wife's car was in the driveway. The porch light was off. Nothing was broken, no smoke, no open door, no sign that anything bad had happened. I pulled into the driveway, and the second the car stopped, Siri's voice became louder. "Get back in the car." I stared at the front door. "Do not go home." I opened my door. "Turn around." I stepped out. "Get back in the car." My legs felt weak, but I kept moving. I shoved the phone into my pocket so I would not have to look at it. Even muffled by fabric, I could still hear the voice repeating the same warning. "Do not go home." I reached the door and unlocked it with hands that would not stop shaking. The key scraped against the lock twice before I got it in. I pushed the door open. The house was silent. Not peaceful silent. Not Saturday afternoon silent. It was heavy, stale, wrong. I stepped inside and called my wife's name. No answer. I called again, louder this time. Still nothing. The air felt thick as I moved through the entryway. At first, I thought the smell was just old breakfast. Pancakes, bacon, something greasy and sweet left sitting too long. But beneath that, there was something else. Something I could not place. The further I walked into the house, the worse I felt. My head began to throb. Not like a normal headache, but like pressure building behind my eyes. My stomach twisted. And for a second, I had to put my hand against the wall to steady myself. I told myself it was stress. I had been driving for hours. I had barely eaten. I was scared. I went into the kitchen first. The table was still set. The pancakes were still there, cold and stiff on the plates. My daughter's fork was beside her plate. My wife's glass of orange juice was half full. My chair was pulled out, waiting for me. I called for them again. This time, my voice cracked. From somewhere deeper in the house, I heard the TV, a cartoon. Bright, cheerful voices. Music, a dog barking. Paw Patrol. My daughter loved that show. I followed the sound down the hallway. Each step became harder. My head spun. My chest felt strange, like the air was too heavy to breathe. I reached the bedroom door and stopped. The TV was on. My wife and daughter were on the bed. At first, my mind refused to understand what I was seeing. My daughter was curled up in my wife's arms, the way she sometimes did when she was sick or sleepy. My wife had one arm around her, holding her close. The blanket was pulled up around them. Paw Patrol played on the screen in front of them, colorful and loud and full of life. But they were too still. I said my wife's name. She did not move. I said my daughter's name. Nothing. I rushed to the bed and touched my wife's shoulder. Her skin was cold. Too cold. I shook her gently at first, then harder. I begged her to wake up. I touched my daughter's face and felt the same coldness there. Her lips had a pale, strange color. My wife's face looked peaceful, almost like she was sleeping, but there was no breath, no movement, no warmth. I screamed. I don't remember exactly what I said. Their names, maybe. Please, maybe. Wake up. Don't do this. Not them. Not my girls. I checked for a pulse, but my hands were shaking so badly I could not tell what I felt. I tried to lift my daughter, but my knees almost gave out. The room tilted around me. The headache was getting worse. My stomach rolled and black spots moved across my vision. My phone was still in my pocket. I pulled it out with clumsy fingers and called the sheriff. This time, somehow, the call went through. I don't know how I explained it. I only remember shouting that they were not waking up, that something was wrong, that he needed to send help. He told me he was on his way. 20 minutes. He said he was 20 minutes out. 20 minutes sounded impossible. I told myself I had to get them outside. I had to carry them out of the house. Fresh air, safety, help. I just had to move. I just had to stand up, lift my daughter, take my wife by the arm, do something. But my body would not listen. I felt so tired. So terribly, deeply tired. The floor seemed to rise toward me, or maybe I fell. I don't remember. I remember being beside the bed, one hand still holding my daughter's small, cold fingers. I remember the TV flashing blue and red across the walls. I remember Siri speaking again from the phone lying on the carpet near me. Her voice was softer now. Or maybe my hearing was fading. Do not go home. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream at it. I wanted to ask why it had not been clearer. Why it had sent me away for so long. Why it had not called someone else. Why it had not saved them. But deep down, a part of me understood. It had tried. My wife had said she had a headache. She had said she and our daughter were going to nap all day. I had left them in the house. I had driven away. I had been angry about missing breakfast, angry at the sheriff, angry about wasted time, while something silent had filled the rooms behind me. I tried to think of the stove, the breakfast, the heat, the gas. Something left on, something leaking, something invisible and quiet. My thoughts slipped away before I could hold them. The room was warm, but I felt cold. I could hear sirens somewhere far away. Or maybe I only imagined them because I needed them to be real. I tried to keep my eyes open. I tried to look at my wife and daughter. I tried to tell them I was sorry. But the sleep came over me like dark water. I told myself it would be okay when I woke up. The sheriff would be there. The paramedics would be there. They would fix everything. They had to. This could not be the end of my family. This could not be the end of us. We would be okay. As soon as I woke up, I would make it right. We would all be okay. Story 4. People who have seen the place do not like to speak its name. Some call it the infection jungle. But even that name feels too small for what it really is. It is not just a jungle. It is not just a level. It is a punishment dressed in leaves, rain, darkness, and endless hunger. Anyone who enters it understands very quickly why it has been marked as Class 5 difficulty. The danger is not in one thing. It is in everything. The trees, the ground, the air, the rain, the plants, and the things that live between the trunks all seem to hate human life. The whole place feels alive, but not in a beautiful way. It feels alive like a wound that never closes. The jungle is so thick that almost no light can reach the ground. The trees are not normal trees. They are enormous, taller than anything that should exist, with trunks so wide that a person could walk beside one for minutes and still not reach the other side. Their branches spread above like the bones of a giant roof, blocking the sky completely. Because of this, the level is trapped in a strange, endless twilight. It is never day and never night. There is only a dull, gray-green darkness, just bright enough to see shapes, but never bright enough to feel safe. Every shadow looks like it is moving. Every vine looks like a hand. Every space between the trees looks like something is waiting there. The air is wet and heavy. It sticks to the skin and fills the lungs like warm cloth. The smell is worse than the darkness. It is a mix of rotten leaves, sour rain, old mud, and something like meat left too long in a closed room. Breathing too deeply makes the throat burn. The ground is soft in some places and hard in others, but it is never trustworthy. It shifts under the feet as if it is thinking. Sometimes it pulses, slow and deep, like a sleeping animal breathing under the soil. There are no clean paths, no clear trails, and no safe open spaces. Everything is cramped, tangled, and wet. A person can walk for hours and feel like they have not moved at all. The worst danger in the jungle does not always come from the creatures. Sometimes it comes from the ground itself. The level is unstable, and at random times, void holes form without warning. These are not normal pits. They are endless drops into a space where the laws of the world stop working. Anyone who falls into one does not simply die. Death would be mercy, and mercy is something this place does not give. The pit takes the body into a non-Newtonian space where time does not behave like time anymore. A person can fall forever, but never reach the bottom. Their body does not age. Their heart does not fail. Hunger never comes. Thirst never comes. Sleep never comes. Even madness, the last escape for a broken mind, may never arrive. Those who fall are trapped in a fall with no ending. They feel the motion, the fear, the emptiness, and the terrible knowledge that nothing will save them. Their screams may continue until their voice should have broken, yet the body does not fully break. The universe itself could grow cold and empty, and still the falling person would not be released. They would keep dropping through a dark space that has no bottom, no walls, no time, and no death. Some people say the void holes glow with a cold light before they open, a pale blue or white shine that looks wrong against the green darkness of the jungle. If a traveler notices that glow, the only smart choice is to stop moving at once and study the ground. But even that may not be enough. The holes are rare, but their rareness makes them more dangerous. People forget about them until the ground reminds them. Before a pit forms, the earth lets out a terrible sound. It is not a crack or a rumble. It is a scream. A high, painful, blood-chilling scream rises from below the soil, as if the jungle itself has been cut open. Then the ground splits, bends, and opens like a mouth. Those who have studied the level believe the ground is not simply dirt. The creatures here seem to believe it is a living gift from their god. To them, the ground suffers when humans walk on it. It screams in pain, and when it opens, it is trying to swallow the humans' intruders that the jungle sees as heretics. The creatures that rule this jungle are called the fungal dwellers. They move through the cramped trees and wet air in swarms, though even one of them is enough to destroy a person. They look like insects, but they are the size of bears. Their bodies are thick, heavy, and muscular, covered in hard plates that shine with damp slime. Their wings are large and sharp-edged, not soft like the wings of normal insects. When they fly, the wings strike against each other with a hard, cutting sound that drills into the skull. It is not only loud. It feels like it is made to harm the mind. A person who hears it for too long begins to shake, forget where they are, and feel panic rising for no clear reason. The fungal dwellers have barbed tails that drag behind them or curl above their backs. Their jaws are huge and powerful enough to crush bone, metal, and almost anything else that gets between them and their prey. Their eyes are dark and wet, but they do not look mindless. That is one of the most frightening things about them. They are not simple animals. They are intelligent hunters. They do not always rush straight at a target. Sometimes they circle. Sometimes they drive a person toward dangerous ground. Sometimes they wait in the trees and let the jungle weaken the victim first. They understand fear, and they use it. They understand that humans make mistakes when they are tired, hurt, and desperate. The dwellers hunt humans for food, but that is not the only reason they attack. They hate intruders. They seem to believe that humans are enemies of the jungle and enemies of their god. They do not see the plants as simple plants. They worship them. Every tree, vine, flower, root, and patch of infected moss is sacred to them. To damage even one living thing in that place is to commit a sin in their eyes. The dwellers have been taught, or have somehow learned, that humans are destroyers who must be punished. They do not only kill, they purge. They remove what they believe does not belong. The plants are just as dangerous as the creatures. The level is filled with thick foliage, bright fungus, wet vines, and leaves that shine with strange colors in the dim light. Some of it looks harmless. Some even looks beautiful. That is how the jungle tricks people. A tired traveler may lean against a trunk, push aside a vine, step on soft moss, or brush a hand over a leaf without thinking. That small touch can be enough. Many of the plants carry a rancid infection, a fungus that enters the body and begins to work almost at once. It kills slowly, but it preserves the body as it kills. The person does not rot in the normal way. Instead, the body becomes food and shelter for the thing growing inside it. At first, the infected person may only feel a sting or an itch. Then the skin becomes hot. The veins darken. The joints grow stiff. A sick sweetness rises from the body, mixed with a rotten smell that no amount of water can wash away. The fungus feeds under the skin and through the muscles. It spreads into the chest, throat, and stomach. It does not hurry because it does not need to. The jungle has already marked its victim. The smell becomes stronger with every minute, and that smell is like a signal to the fungal dwellers. It gives away the exact location of the infected person. No hiding place stays hidden after that. When the dwellers catch the scent, the sound begins. Wings scrape against wings in the distance. Then the sound grows louder, sharper, closer. The trees shake. Rainwater falls from leaves in heavy drops. The infected person may run, but the jungle itself slows them. Roots catch their feet. Mud pulls at their shoes. Vines slap against their face and arms. The acidic rain burns their skin and weakens them. The smell from their body keeps calling the creatures. Soon the first shape appears between the trees, then another, then many more. The dwellers do not always kill quickly. They slam into the victim, knock them down, pin them under their weight, and tear them apart piece by piece while the fungus continues to grow. After feeding, the dwellers use what remains. They lay eggs through the bones and the parts of the body left behind. The body becomes a nest. For about a week, the eggs sit in the warm, infected remains, protected by the fungus and hidden under leaves. Then they hatch. The young dwellers grow at a terrible speed. They feed on the flesh left for them, and when that is not enough, they feed on each other. Only the strongest survive. The jungle wastes nothing. Every death becomes food. Every body becomes part of the system. Every person who enters and fails becomes another offering to the green dark. The rain never stops for long. It falls through the canopy in thin streams and heavy drops, always carrying a mild acid that burns slowly rather than all at once. At first it feels like normal rain with a faint sting. After an hour, the skin becomes sore. After several hours, clothes weaken, hands blister, and eyes begin to water. Small cuts turn painful. Metal rusts faster than it should. Food becomes unsafe. The rain is not strong enough to kill quickly, but that is the point. It weakens anything not native to the land. It makes fighting nearly impossible. A person who tries to swing a weapon finds their grip slipping. A person who tries to climb finds their fingers burning. A person who tries to rest wakes with raw skin and shaking limbs. Because of this rain, staying alive for even one day is almost impossible. There are no known settlements in the infection jungle. No safe camps, no human towns, no friendly outposts. People have found signs that others tried to survive there, but none of those places lasted. Broken shelters sit under the trees, crushed by roots or torn open by claws. Old bags hang from branches, black with mold. Rusted tools lie half buried in mud. Scraps of cloth are stuck to thorns. Sometimes there are marks on trees where people counted days, but the counts always stop. Sometimes there are old fire pits, though the wood is too wet to burn now. Every remnant tells the same story. People entered. People hoped. The jungle took them. The way into the level is also a warning. A person does not usually enter by accident in the normal way. The infection jungle reaches through liminal spaces, through strange backroom-like levels, and through any place where its influence has spread. The entrance opens for those who purposely destroy vegetation, break a sacred plant in the wrong place, cut down a living thing where the jungle can feel it, or damage growth that is under its reach, and the punishment may come. One moment the person is in another lonely space, maybe a hallway, a field, a room, or a forgotten level. The next moment the air changes. The smell of rot arrives. The walls or ground seem to grow wet. Leaves appear where there should be none. Then the person steps forward and finds themselves under the endless canopy. The creatures bring people there because to them, harm against plants is not a small act. It is an insult to their idols. They believe the fauna of the level is the offspring of God, and anyone who harms it must be judged. The punishment is not only death. Death is too simple. The punishment is fear, pain, infection, hunger that belongs to the jungle, and the knowledge that everything around you is on the side of the enemy. The trees do not shelter you. The rain does not cool you. The ground does not hold you safely. Even the silence is not peace. It is only the pause before wings start beating again. There is only one known way to leave, and it is so difficult that most people do not believe it is real. The exit is above the canopy. To escape, a person must climb the trees and reach the top. But the trees are miles tall. Their bark is slick with rain, fungus, and acid. Their branches are far apart. Their trunks are covered in thorns, insects, and living growth that may infect the skin with one touch. Climbing them is not like climbing a normal tree. It is more like climbing a wet tower made of flesh, wood, and poison, while monsters circle below and above. A person would need strength, luck, and a level of determination that borders on madness. Even then, the jungle may not allow it. Only one person is believed to have escaped this way. Their identity has been kept unknown, either to protect them or because even their name became dangerous. What is known comes from notebook scraps, torn pages, and graffiti left behind in different parts of the level. The writing was shaky, often smeared by rain, but it told enough. The survivor learned that the canopy was the boundary. Beyond it, there was a way out. They also learned that climbing alone was not enough. The jungle demanded payment. The person had sinned by harming vegetation before entering, and the creatures, or the force behind them, required a sacrifice to balance that sin. The survivor gave up a third of their life. No one knows exactly how this was done. Some believe time was taken from them. Some believe years disappeared from their body the moment they made the promise. Others believe they were forced to spend that part of their life in service, inside the level before the exit would open. The scraps suggest they stayed and worked for the Wanderers, doing brutal labor under constant danger. They carried bodies away from trees. They cleared paths that closed again behind them. They gathered infected remains and placed them where the dwellers would not attack other travelers for a short time. They suffered for people they did not know because there was no other way to make the jungle release them. During that time, the survivors saw things that changed them forever. They saw bodies hanging from branches, wrapped in vines like offerings. They saw skeletons grown into trunks, their ribs filled with fungus. They saw old backpacks placed at the bases of trees like warnings. They saw messages carved into bark by hands that had later gone missing. Some messages begged for help, some begged for death. Some only repeated the same words again and again, as if the writer had forgotten all other thoughts. The survivor understood then that escape was not a door waiting to be found. Escape was a bargain, and the jungle always took more than it gave. When the time came, the survivor climbed. The climb must have taken longer than any normal human could endure. The rain burned. The bark cut their hands. The air grew thinner as they rose. Below, the jungle stretched out in every direction, endless and dark, with the cold glow of void holes appearing here and there like dead stars in the soil. The wings of the dwellers echoed below them, and perhaps above them too. They kept climbing because stopping meant joining the bodies in the trees. At last, they reached the canopy, and something opened. Not a doorway in the normal sense, but a break in the world, a place where the endless twilight thinned and another reality could be touched. They left, but they did not leave whole. No one could. A third of their life was gone, and the rest of it belonged to the memory of that place. They carried the knowledge out with them so others might understand the cost. Do not harm strange vegetation in forgotten spaces. Do not assume plants are harmless just because they cannot chase you. Do not trust a jungle that has no sunlight. Do not step near a cold glow in the ground. Do not touch leaves that shine too brightly in the dark. Do not follow the sound of wings, and if the ground screams, stop moving, because by the time it opens, it may already be too late. The infection jungle is not a place made for humans to survive. It is a living sentence, passed down by something that loves plants more than it hates people, and yet its hatred is deep enough to fill every shadow. It feeds, worships, grows, and punishes. It keeps its victims alive when death would be kinder. It uses rain to weaken them, fungus to mark them, insects to hunt them, and the ground itself to swallow them. Every part of it works together. Every leaf is a warning. Every drop of rain is part of the trap. And somewhere under that endless canopy, in the dim green dark, the fungal dwellers are still flying, still listening, still waiting for the next human to break a sacred stem and be delivered into their jungle. Story 5. I don't know if this is the right place to tell the story, but I don't know what else to do anymore. I have already tried calling my friends. I tried posting about it in other places, but my posts kept getting removed before anyone could even answer me. Nobody is picking up the phone. Nobody is helping. I feel like I am losing my mind, and I have never been this scared in my entire life. As soon as I finish writing this, I'm going to call the police, even though I already know how insane this is going to sound. Earlier today, I went shopping with my girlfriend, Taylor, at the Hobby Lobby in DeKalb. Taylor's best friend is getting married, and Taylor was put in charge of decorating the wedding reception. She wanted to make floral centerpieces for the tables, so we went to the store to buy fake flowers, jars, ribbons, and whatever else she needed. I wasn't exactly excited to be there on my day off, but I went with her because she asked and because I thought it would only take a little while. For the first half hour, everything was normal. Taylor was walking through the floral section, comparing flowers and colors, holding up different pieces and asking me what I thought. I wasn't much help. I kept saying they all looked fine, which annoyed her, but not in a serious way. Then I told her I needed to use the bathroom. She barely looked up from the flowers and just told me to hurry, because she still needed to go to another store after this. I was gone for less than 10 minutes. When I came back, I went straight to the aisle where I had left her. She wasn't there. At first, I didn't think much of it. Taylor likes to wander when she shops, especially in a craft store. I figured she had moved 1 or 2 aisles over, so I walked around the same part of the store and looked for her. I checked the floral aisles. I checked the next few aisles. I walked up and down that whole half of the store. I didn't see her anywhere. After a few minutes, I pulled out my phone and texted her. "Where are you?" A couple of minutes later, she replied, "I'm still in floral, corner of the store." That confused me because I was standing near the floral section. I walked back through it again, slower this time, checking each aisle carefully. She still wasn't there. I texted her again, asking if there was another floral section, somewhere else in the store that I didn't know about. She sent me a photo. It showed an aisle full of fake flowers. It looked exactly like the aisle I had just walked through less than 30 seconds before. Same shelves, same flowers, same signs. I even recognized a white bucket of sunflowers near the end of the aisle. But Taylor wasn't there. I was standing in that exact place, and she was not in front of me. And so at first, I thought she was messing with me. Taylor and I joke around a lot, and I have pulled plenty of pranks on her before. I called her, partly so she could guide me to where she was, and partly so I could hear in her voice if she was lying. When she answered, she sounded annoyed. "Where are you?" she asked. "I'm in floral," I said. "Where are you?" "I'm in floral too. Stop playing." I could hear the store sounds behind her. There were carts, people talking, and that soft piano music that plays in the background. It sounded like she was really inside the store. But I was also inside the store, standing right where she said she was, and I still couldn't see her. I got frustrated. I was tired, a little hungover from the night before, and already irritated that I was spending my day off shopping for flowers. I told her to just meet me at the front counter when she was done. I thought maybe she was hiding, or maybe there was some dumb trick going on, and I didn't want to keep chasing her around the store. So I went to the front and waited. 15 minutes passed. Taylor still didn't come up to the counter. I looked outside through the front doors and saw her car still in the parking lot. She wasn't sitting in it. That made me feel a little uneasy. But before I could think too much about it, my phone buzzed again. Taylor texted, "I'm ready to go. I already checked out." I stared at the message. "No, you didn't," I texted back. "I'm literally up front." A few seconds later, she called me again. This time she sounded angry. She told me she didn't have time for my jokes and reminded me that we still had another store to visit. I told her to FaceTime me because I was going to find her, one way or another. She started the FaceTime call. The moment her face appeared on my screen, she asked, "Where are you?" I could see the background behind her. It was the same store. I knew it was. The ceiling tiles were the same. The wall color was the same. The lights were the same. She was standing near the checkout area. From the angle of her camera, she should have been no more than 5 feet away from me. But when I looked up from my phone, she was not there. On my screen, I could see a full line of people waiting at the register. There were shoppers with carts, people holding bags, workers scanning items. But in front of me, the checkout area was empty. There wasn't a line. There wasn't a cashier. There wasn't even a door greeter. The entire front of the store looked abandoned. I felt my body go cold. I told Taylor to turn her camera around. She did, and I could see the whole checkout area from her side. It was full of people. I could see the register, the doors, the shelves near the front, everything. But when I looked away from my phone, none of those people were there. I couldn't handle the sound of her voice anymore. She kept accusing me of messing with her, and I couldn't explain what I was seeing. I told her I was going to the bathroom, then I hung up. I went back to the restroom and locked myself in a stall. I sat on the closed toilet seat and tried calling everyone I knew. Nobody answered. Not one person. Some calls rang until they stopped. Some went straight to voicemail. Most of them didn't even have voicemail set up. The only person I seemed able to call was Taylor, and she was furious with me. She kept calling me, telling me if I didn't come to the front in 5 minutes, she was going to leave without me. I guess I deserved that in a way. For 2 years, I had been the kind of boyfriend who pulled stupid pranks. Once I snuck across into her house and replaced the painting above her bed with it. Then I kept acting like nothing was wrong and tried to convince her she was going through some kind of religious breakdown. She never believed it. Taylor is smart. She saw through it right away and laughed at me for thinking I was clever. But now, when I actually needed her to believe me, she thought I was lying again. I took a deep breath and tried to calm down. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was hungover, making a fool of myself. I told myself that the worst thing that could happen was that I would walk to the front, Taylor would be there, and I would have to admit I had panicked over nothing. So I left the bathroom. I didn't even make it halfway to the front before that hope disappeared. Through a gap between the aisles, I could see the front doors. Taylor was not there. No one was there. The store still felt completely empty. The only sound was the piano music coming from the store speakers. It was some slow, soft cover of a song I almost recognized but couldn't place. The music felt wrong. It wasn't just background noise anymore. It felt heavy, like the sound had weight. It pressed down on my shoulders and made the air feel thick. Moving through the store felt like walking through warm water. I kept going to the front doors. I wanted to get outside. It was hot outside, but I didn't care. I just wanted to stand in the parking lot, see Taylor's car, and make sense of what was happening. I walked straight into the automatic doors. They didn't open. My face hit the glass hard enough to knock my glasses crooked. I cursed and fixed them, but my anger disappeared the moment I looked outside. I don't know how to explain what I saw. It was early evening. Not quite sunset, but not fully daylight either. The sky should have had that soft orange color mixed with blue. But the light outside looked wrong. It was like the shadows and highlights had switched places. The parts of the cars that should have been dark were shining bright, and the tops and sides of the cars were covered in deep black shadow. Everything looked inverted, like the whole world outside had been turned inside out. I stared through the glass, trying to understand if it was some kind of trick of the light. Then I realized the door still wasn't opening. I pressed my hands against the metal frame and pushed. Nothing. I tried to slide the door open by force. Nothing. I pushed harder and harder. At that point, I didn't care if I broke it. I just wanted out. Then I heard a sound I hadn't made myself. A register beeped. It was the little dinging sound a register makes when an item is scanned. I had probably heard it 100 times earlier while the store was busy, but I hadn't noticed it then. Now, in the empty store, the sound echoed through the whole front area like I was standing in a cave. I froze. The register beeped again. I turned slowly. The counter was empty. Nobody was standing there. No cashier, no customer, no worker, but the register was lighting up each time it beeped. Beep. I was about 20 feet away from it, the little display arm. The one that shows the customer the price flashed with each sound. Beep. Then it started beeping faster. Beep. 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 It felt like the machine wanted me to come closer. I slipped my hand into my pocket and wrapped my fingers around my phone. It was a stupid weapon, but it had a metal case, and holding it made me feel a little less helpless. I walked toward the register slowly, one step at a time. Beep, beep, beep. When I reached the counter, I looked at the screen. Beep. Nathan. I stopped breathing. Beep. Where are you? My mouth went dry. Beep. You need to smash your phone. I took a step back. Beep. Now. The register kept flashing new words. Beep. That's not me. Beep. Stop talking to him. Beep. Smash your phone, Nathan. Beep. Now. Beep. Now. Beep. Now. Beep. Now. I ran. I ran back to the bathroom faster than I think I have ever run in my life. The beeping behind me got louder and faster, like the register was screaming without a voice. My phone started buzzing again in my pocket. Taylor was calling me over and over. I locked myself in the bathroom again. I could still hear the piano music, but now it was being swallowed by the endless beeping from the front of the store. Then something started pounding on the bathroom door. I don't know how long I stayed there. At some point, I slipped into a strange half-sleep while sitting in the stall. I think I was in that bathroom for almost 4 hours. The pounding finally stopped, but that almost scared me more. I never heard anyone walk up to the door, and I never heard anyone walk away after the pounding ended. The knocking had just started, and then it had just stopped. The register was still beeping. Even from behind the closed bathroom door, from what felt like the other side of a store the size of a football field, I could hear it. The same pattern. The same digital echo. My phone was still buzzing in my pocket, too. Taylor's name kept flashing on the screen. Her contact photo is from our trip to Galveston last year. In the picture, I'm carrying her on my back, and she's smiling at her sister while holding up a peace sign. She looks beautiful in that photo. I hate that I started to feel sick every time I saw it appear on my phone. I wanted to see the real Taylor more than anything. But I also wanted her name to stop showing up. I tried to sleep. I thought maybe if I could fall asleep, I would wake up and everything would be normal. Maybe this was a nightmare. Maybe one of my friends had put something in my drink the night before, and I was having some horrible reaction. I almost managed to tune out the beeping, the buzzing, and the music. Then a new sound came through the store speakers. Nathaniel to customer service, please. Nathaniel to customer service, please. Thank you. The voice came from the intercom. It was my voice. My heart dropped into my stomach. I lay completely still, staring at the ceiling, hoping I had imagined it. I waited. The store was quiet except for the music, the beeping, and my phone. Then the intercom spoke again. Nathaniel to customer service, please. Nathaniel to customer service, please. Thank you. This time it was slower. It sounded like someone mocking me, dragging out the words the way you talk to someone who keeps asking stupid questions. It was my voice, but it was not me. It sounded like my voice had been taken apart and put back together wrong. I couldn't stay in the stall anymore. The beeping was driving me insane. The phone buzzing was driving me insane. Now my own voice was calling me to the front of the store. I opened the stall door and stepped into the bathroom. I looked around carefully, making sure whatever had been pounding on the door hadn't somehow gotten inside without me hearing it. The bathroom was empty. I walked to the door and put my hand on the handle. My heart was pounding so hard that it felt like it might break through my ribs. Before I could change my mind, I pulled the door open. For the first time in hours, I saw people. Not just one or two. Dozens. The bathroom in that store was down a hallway near the break room and what I guessed was the stock room. Usually, almost nobody went back there. Maybe you would pass an employee on lunch break or another customer leaving the restroom. But that was it. Now at least 30 people were moving through the hallway, employees in blue vests and khaki pants, shoppers in normal clothes. Some pushed carts, some carried baskets, some just walked. They moved in every direction at once, flowing together like a river of bodies. They were all talking, but not really to each other. Their chatter was empty and strange. The moment I opened the bathroom door, the noise hit me like a gust of wind. Before I could step back, people began flooding into the men's restroom. They pushed past me, shoulder to shoulder, like water rushing into a sinking ship. I was shoved aside by one person, then another, then another. I tried to speak, but I couldn't get a word out. The crowd forced me into the hallway and then back into the main store. When I saw the sales floor, I almost broke down. There had to be thousands of people inside that Hobby Lobby. The last time I had looked through the aisles, the store had been empty. Now it was packed so tightly that I could barely see the floor. Comparing it to sardines in a can would not be enough. It looked like half the town had decided to come shopping at the exact same time, and every single person was pushing forward without caring who they hit. The store also seemed bigger. I know that sounds impossible, but it did. Before, I could see across to the far wall in some places. Now, for long stretches, I couldn't see the other side at all. The aisles seemed to go on too far. The ceiling felt too high. The lights looked too bright. I had no choice but to push my way toward the front. The sounds were unbearable. Hundreds of carts squeaked and rattled. Baskets hit shelves, wheels rolled over feet. People mumbled and talked in voices that bounced off the walls and ceiling. The piano music still played. The register still beeped. My phone still buzzed. I could only catch small pieces of what people were saying as they passed me. That's that time of year for crafts. I hope I get a receipt. There are too many candles in here. I think I will buy something today and tomorrow, too. Maybe I should decorate my lawn? None of it sounded real. It was like someone who had only heard about stores from far away had written lines for fake customers to say. The people didn't look at each other. They didn't react when carts hit them. They didn't apologize when they slammed into me. It was like I was invisible to them and like they were invisible to each other. It took me almost an hour to reach the front. When I finally got to the checkout area, the counter was still empty. At least, it was empty in the way that mattered. No cashier was working there. No employee was scanning anything. But the crowd still moved all around it, bumping into the counter and pressing against it like a human tide. I grabbed the edge of the bagging area and held on as tightly as I could. I felt like if I let go, the crowd would sweep me away and I would never find the front again. I looked at the register and screamed up, "What do you want? Who are you?" I knew how insane I looked, yelling at a cash register, but I didn't care anymore. I wanted the beeping to stop. I wanted the crowd to stop talking. I wanted my phone to stop buzzing. I wanted Taylor to stop calling me. Beep. Then everything went silent. It happened so suddenly that I thought, for 1 second, that I had been shot and died. The cart stopped. The voices stopped. The footsteps stopped. The whole store became still. I squeezed my eyes shut and clenched my teeth. When I opened them, every person in the store was staring at me. Thousands of eyes, blank faces, no anger, no surprise, no emotion at all. They weren't staring like people who had heard someone scream. They were staring like dolls that had all been turned in the same direction. The register beeped again. I forced myself to look at the screen. Beep. "Oh, hon." Beep. "I think I found you." My body locked up. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I looked around, expecting something to rush at me from behind a shelf or drop from the ceiling. Then I heard a voice above me. "Nathan." It sounded like Taylor, but it wasn't coming from the intercom. It was too close for that. Too real. But it also wasn't human enough. I looked up. Taylor was above me. But it was not my Taylor. She was floating about 15 feet off the ground, upside down, as if she were walking on an invisible ceiling. Her long, strawberry blonde hair hung toward the floor. Her arms and legs moved in a gentle walking motion, but she didn't move forward like a normal person. She just hung there in the air, trapped in the shape of a walk. Her voice was horrible. It was like screaming, whispering, and talking all at the same time. It was flat and emotionless, but also sharp enough to hurt. "Nathaniel, I miss you. Nathaniel, I miss you. Nathaniel, I miss you. Nathaniel, I miss you." She repeated it again and again without taking a breath. I fell backward and tried to cover my ears. Then I turned and ran. The crowd did not move out of my way. The shoppers stood in place, still staring at me with those blank faces. They were not statues. Their bodies shifted when I hit them. Their arms moved. Their heads turned. But they would not step aside. I screamed and forced my way through them, using my shoulders and head like a battering ram. The thing that looked like Taylor kept repeating my name. Her voice pierced into my skull. I could barely hear the register anymore. I could barely hear my phone. Everything was being swallowed by that terrible voice. My ears started to feel warm. Something wet ran down my earlobes. I think they were bleeding. I pushed harder. Elbows hit me. Carts struck my legs. Hands brushed against my face. I kept moving because stopping meant letting that thing reach me. I finally felt my head slam against one of the windows beside the front doors. Pain flashed through my skull, but I ignored it. I was pressed between the glass and a dozen bodies. The crowd had trapped me there. I looked over my shoulder. The Taylor thing was getting closer. She still wasn't really walking. Her legs moved in the same broken pattern, but the distance between us kept shrinking anyway, like a glitch in an old video game. She was about a foot below the ceiling tiles, floating upside down, smiling with no feeling at all. "Nathan, I miss you. Nathan, I miss you. Nathan, I miss you." I tried to lift my arms to break the glass, but I was squeezed too tightly. I couldn't move enough to swing my fists. I pushed my shoulder into the window, but it didn't budge. The thing got closer. I had no options left. I pulled my head back and slammed my forehead into the glass. The sound was a dull, painful thunk. Bright stars exploded across my vision. The pain was so bad that for a second, I forgot where I was. But the voice was louder now, closer now, and that brought me back. I hit the glass again. Thunk. Still nothing. My knees almost gave out, but the crowd was packed so tightly around me that I couldn't fall. I could feel their bodies holding me upright, pinning me against the window. The thing that looked like Taylor was almost above me now. I pulled my head back one more time. With the last strength I had, I slammed my forehead into the glass as hard as I could. This time, it shattered. Sound came back to me all at once. The glass broke. The store alarm screamed. I fell forward through the window and crashed onto the sidewalk outside. Shards of glass cut into my hands, knees, arms, and back. I tried to move, but pain shot through my whole body. My head pounded. Blood ran down my face and dripped from my chin. I could hear the alarm ringing above me. Then I heard Taylor's voice again. This time it was different. It had fear in it. Real fear. Real emotion. She was screaming my name. Footsteps rushed toward me. People were shouting. I tried to lift my head, but everything was spinning. My clothes felt wet and heavy as blood spread through them. The pain was everywhere. It was louder than the alarm, louder than the crowd, louder than the thing's voice had been. Then everything went dark. It has been 2 days since I lost my girlfriend in the DeKalb Hobby Lobby. At least I think it has been 2 days. That is what the call history on my phone seems to suggest. I am still not sure. The doctors told me I had some kind of mental breakdown. I am in a hospital bed now, covered in bandages and hooked up to machines I don't understand. I started writing this after I spoke to the police. The officer was polite enough, I guess. He told me what everyone else saw. According to Taylor, I had been standing in the checkout line like I was in a trance. Then, without warning, I started sprinting and threw myself through the front window like a lunatic. Those were the officer's words, not mine. The doctors don't know what happened. They have mentioned everything from a brain bleed to a stress-induced break from reality. I think they are waiting to see how I recover before deciding what to do about the damage to the store window.